I am so looking forward to today's podcast with Kaitlyn Parkes. I met Kaitlyn, like all my guests, it seems like it's forever ago, but I think we've just worked out that it's maybe 2.5 years ago. And I met Kaitlyn through one of the corporate programs that I work on. And Kaitlyn manages that program. So basically, she's my boss.
Right.
Yeah, right. And she thought she was getting paid for today, but this has to be purely it's not a paid partnership. Sorry, Kaitlyn, around that.
I didn't realise I was volunteering my time.
Yes, you are. You are. I'm sure that was in our contract, in our clause. But Kaitlyn is an up-and-coming superstar. Her career is on fire. And I just want to know all about Kaitlyn and what's kind of led her to being where she's in her career, but also about Kaitlyn generally. She's just purchased her first property with her sister. So she's coming into a very exciting and expensive time, I would say, in your life. And Kaitlyn is super fun to be around. I just love being in her energy. I've got a special spot in my heart for Kaitlyn. There's a little bit of a glimmer when I hang out with her that she reminds me of a kind of a newer and improved version of me. So welcome, Kaitlyn. How are you?
Thank you. I'm good. How are you going?
I'm so good. And I'm really looking forward to this chat. Like, we have lots of chats, but this is one where I've got you focused and
a position I love to be in.
Yes, having the spotlight on you. And Kaitlyn, I would love to just chat with you about, how you do life, but also about your career, because you are a little bit younger than I am. You've had maybe half as
only
many...
by a couple of years,
yes.
I would say.
Maybe you've had more. Yeah. Yes. Anyway, we'll leave that. Let's just put it this way: Kaitlyn's born, I think, a day after my son. So the age difference is a little bit. But anyway. So Kaitlyn, tell us a little bit about you. What are some of the things, on your journey of life that's brought you to where you are? What's the key events in your life?
That is a very great question that I'm sure I will absolutely unpack over the next half an hour.
Yeah.
I think really, to me, I almost have two personas. There's work me.
Yep.
And then there's Kaitlyn me, I suppose.
Yeah.
But they tend to merge because I like to hope that I'm a very genuine individual.
Yes.
So sometimes those lines blur. But I guess work-wise, I am very fortunate enough to be in a job and in a career that I absolutely adore.
Yeah.
And I know I don't like using the term lucky, because I like to think that I've done this or, I've exposed myself to opportunities, but I know I am very fortunate to have almost accidentally fallen into a career that I love. And so that certainly helps. And I guess that is... How
did that happen, Kaitlyn? Because I love hearing that. That's almost, how I said that I see a bit of me in you. I fell into my career like 100 years ago, and I absolutely love it as well. So how did that happen for you?
Really, it came through, like, when I finished year 12, I had no idea what I wanted to do, but I did know I absolutely did not want to study at university.
Yeah.
And I was a very passionate year 12 student with how much I resented that idea. So I actually went through a corporate program myself that targeted 18-year-olds, really.
Yeah.
And so I went through that and so happened to fall into a role within human resources, which is where I'm working today. And that was 6 years ago. And so I'm in federal government, and I started as an APS 1, which is the lowest on the food chain that you can be.
So entry level staff.
Yes. Yeah, entry level staff. But, and I've kind of just worked my way from there. I started off in human resources. I did about 12 months there and then moved into a data role. And that was hilarious because I was terrible at math. I hated Excel spreadsheets. And those were basically the two things I had to do for my pay.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So was able to navigate my way through that. And I actually turned around and really loved that as well.
Oh, wow.
And I really liked that I kind of absolutely knew nothing about it, because as much as I really like human resources, or HR, as I call it, my mum also works in HR, and she's a senior leader in that field as well. So I really liked that the data all kind of gave me outside viewpoints, I suppose. You know, I grew up with HR speak.
Yeah.
So that data role was something where I could really almost find my own way, I suppose. But eventually I got to the point where I didn't feel like I was learning anything, and that was something that was really important to me morally. So I decided to go back into HR, and that's where I've been ever since. And so I've done quite a few roles and have climbed the corporate ladder, so to speak, which I'm very proud of. But now I'm a leader, I suppose.
You absolutely are. And that's when we got together, like I've seen in the couple of years that I've known you, that your career has progressed there as well. You're studying at uni now? Are you studying?
Yeah.
So how did that come about? Because you said you categorically didn't want to study at uni.
Yep, I was still that only came about recently. About a year and a half ago, I started studying.
Yeah.
I was adamant that I was only going to go back to uni if I wanted to. Yes. And I got to the point where I thought it would be really helpful to go back to uni. I knew that I wanted to work in HR for my career. So I kind of linked it back to there. But the other thing is I'm doing HR and psychology.
I love it.
The psychology part of this degree is really the reason why I decided to go, because it's something that I kind of hold close to my chest.
Yeah.
And I'm very passionate about it. So I figured I'd do that degree because I could do something that kind of helps my career a little bit, but also can do it on my terms. So.
Yeah. I really like that, Kaitlyn, that it's about that the study has meaning to it, that you can, what you've said there is that you want to make your career in HR, and that the study's actually helping you to do that. It's not studying for the purpose of studying. And I can now see why you're psychoanalyzing me when I come into the building all the time with your psychology.
With my one unit I've done so
with
far.
Your one unit, yes. Yeah. But for me, that's a whole foundation of just why people do what they do, and working in HR particularly, so human resources, that's a really, I think that's a really important skill, I think, and knowledge, and to be able to embody that. Yeah. What, and I'm not sure whether off the top of your head, but what are some of the things, because you have progressed, how old are you? 24?
24, yeah. I'm 24. Turning 25 in a couple of weeks. But
Yeah. So 24, and your goal was to get to this leadership role that you're in by your 25th birthday.
Yep.
So you've smashed that goal maybe 12 months.
Yep.
Yep. So you're 12 months ahead of schedule, overachiever. Love it.
I'll be honest, that very much came from I'm a very stubborn individual. And so I actually had a close family friend who did get to this level by 25. Yeah. So really I just wanted to be on par with her.
Oh, okay.
So I wish I could tell you a really inspirational story about why I was motivated to lead a team.
I love
really,
that.
I'm very competitive.
Yes. And you know what? I do see that. I see that you're driven. I would say driven, maybe competitive, but I absolutely see you being very driven, but also very like you're not whimsical about it. You're actually very dedicated to the work that you're doing, and you do take it very seriously, even though there are times that when we're having a bit of a joke and a laugh, it doesn't feel like that. But I know that you take your job very, very seriously, what you're doing.
Yeah. And I think as well, I'm in a role where I'm managing corporate programs. So there's a little part of me that looks out to the me from 6 years ago. I very much feel like I've come full circle. And that, I think, pulls into my dedication to work and my drive to do a good job and you know, aspects like that. So it's funny because I, you know, kind of how I mentioned about how there's two personas, I pour a lot of me into my job.
Yes. Absolutely.
which can be a good thing in terms of I feel like I am seen as driven.
Yeah.
But I guess on the flip side of that is I also take things very personally when they happen in the workforce. So
tell me more. What does it look like? Tell me more.
No, I think, I do tend to take things personally, but I just think I care a lot.
Yeah.
And work is also where I kind of fuel most of my, my self-esteem or enjoyment in life as well. So sometimes those two are very interconnected, which can be hard to separate when things go wrong, especially as well.
Yeah. Just ignore the phone. I ignore that phone.
Good.
Because I'm recording. Yes, that I'm like you too about taking things personally, sometimes overly sensitive about things, but the underneath bit for me is because I care so much as well. I'm just going to rewind a little bit, that when you talked about your managing corporate programs, for the listeners that maybe aren't familiar with government land, you came in, when you talked about coming into a program targeted, when you started your career for young school leavers, that's a corporate program, and you're actually managing those corporate programs. There's a whole range of them that you manage, and one of them is for school leavers. So it's nice to be able to, I guess, be able to empathise with the school kids that are coming in, and I can 100% see you doing that with them, and that extra bit of love that you give them and sort of take them under your wings, which is awesome, which is really cool.
Yep, I try. I also find it really hard because each year when they start, I think, God, was I that little 6 years ago? And so I still remember the first outfit I wore on that day, and now I look back and I'm like, oh, you're so embarrassing.
What was it? What did you wear? I
wore just a black shirt with a black skirt, with a white shirt. But it was very like my mum tried to dress me. And I still hadn't figured out a style. No idea what to wear. Like, I didn't know what to do with my hair.
That's funny. But you know what? That's all the stuff that I think we tend to forget about those things. And it's really lovely that you're maybe closer in age to people that you're looking after on those programs, because maybe a little bit more relatable than some of the oldies. Can I ask you, Kaitlyn, have you had to manage anybody that's older than you?
Yes, I've had to do that a few times. I think I'm only now managing two people that are younger than me in age. But I actually managed someone in the last few years who ended up retiring while she was in my team. Much older than me. Yeah. Sorry to them. And then a few people like who, not so much older than me that it's like substantial. It's still 5 or so years. And I remember I've had a lot of comments about my position and my age. And one of them is quite often, well, you've got to think about what it's going to be like when you're managing someone older than you. And it's just never been a thing for me. I know that sounds really blasé, but I just think what I've learned, and this is kind of something that I personally believe in, is that age can be such a box that you can put people in. Yeah. And I've felt that coming up, in throughout my career, and I'm still getting that to this day. Like, in the last month, I've had someone comment on my age. So
really,
yeah. And it's just something that I'm almost tackling. I've learned how to tackle it kind of head on, which is something that I find that I'm only good at if I have to go through things repeatedly.
Yeah.
But I think for me, I try not to let it affect the way I do things, because I think that it puts someone in a box, and you don't want to assume. Yeah. I don't want to assume what someone's like or what they're capable of or what their motivation is to work based on how long they've been here, so to speak.
Oh, Kaitlyn, I love hearing that, because I do a lot of work with women and women at all ages, and there are some young women who find it really challenging, and I think that's more about their view of themselves. They don't feel confident in themselves, and I love hearing that you bring yourself to that leadership role, and it's not about you don't see that as they're just people. They're just people.
Yep, definitely. And I think it's really hard, and not to get very sentimental in
Yeah.
this kind of segue, but
Yeah.
I went through. My sister was diagnosed with cancer when I was 15.
Yeah.
And she's good now, like she's cancer free, which is really great. But that was 7 or 8 years ago, or whenever it was, and it has really shaped me as an individual. So by the time I started in the workforce, I'd gone through about 2.5 years of my sister having like a very serious illness. And I found that even from day one, people look at you and you're 18, which, don't get me wrong, sometimes I look at these kids now and I'm like, wow, I was that little.
Yeah.
But I found it really challenging because people put me in a box. I was 18, you know, I worked with a lot of people where I was their sons or daughters or, you know, their kind of age. But I had gone through something that most adults never go through in their entire life. And so that was something that I very much learned very quickly, is like I didn't like that. So I made a commitment to be like, if I ever had to manage someone, I would never make them feel like that, or I would do my best not to.
Oh, Kaitlyn, that's beautiful that from your lived experience, you've been able to bring that into your work life. And when you were saying that there's the two personas, so we've heard about the work Kaitlyn, and there's some really cool things there. Tell us about the non-work Kaitlyn. So what was that like? So your sister, is she younger than you?
Yeah, so 3 years younger. So my poor sister, she was 12 when she was first diagnosed. She is an incredible human being. And if I ever said that to her, she would be like, ugh, lame. Which as little sister...
We'll play this to her. We'll play it to her.
Yeah, have her on as another guest.
I will. That would be beautiful.
Yeah. But no, she's incredible. But I think, you know, looking back, it was tricky. You know, like our life was literally turned upside down on a Friday night. And I remember being at work, and at the time I was working at a fast food restaurant chain, so very fun stuff. I used to think I ran that place too.
I could imagine that you did run that place. I could imagine.
But I remember my manager coming to me and telling me there was a family emergency, and even then I like pressured him to tell me what was going on, even though I was like 15 years old. The poor thing had no idea what to say. So sorry. But no, I think, you know, I learn a lot. You know, I'm very open with how I talk about it, which probably makes other people uncomfortable. But I'm very blasé about it now, as I think some people probably think. But
actually, can you just repeat that? Your microphone just played up a little bit. So you were saying that you speak very openly about it, but it makes others feel a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah, I think because people don't expect to hear it in detail, I suppose. But I'm just very honest, so to speak. So kind of what that was like for me is, you know, I was in year 10 when my sister first got sick, which is, you know, everyone hypes it up in terms of being like, it's the final years of school, you're growing into an adult. And I had no idea what to do with myself. And my sister was getting treatment regularly, and I was, you know, commuting between Canberra and Sydney, still working my casual job because I'm a nightmare, and just trying to figure out what my life looked like. You know, everyone my age, you know, they were getting ready for college, they were working, they had social lives and everything like that. And I spent my weekend in hospital wards. And then equally, when I was in year 11, my sister relapsed, which meant that her cancer came back. And she had leukemia. So the type of leukemia that she had when you relapse, the odds of living are phenomenally lower than when you're diagnosed. So my parents made the decision to move my little brother and I up to Sydney. And it's funny because I forget how young my brother was, but he was 6.
Oh, goodness.
When I was 6 years old. He started kindergarten that year, and when we moved up to Sydney.
Oh, so he started in Canberra, then moved to Sydney.
Yeah, so we both did. So, like, I think as well, it was just a huge reset in every aspect of our life. But I am very grateful, not that my sister got sick, but I think it's very much made me who I am today. And I think that determination that I had to see through the other side of my sister's illness has very much bled into my work persona, so to speak, as well.
Yeah.
And I find that can be a good thing, but also a bad thing. But it's definitely shaped who I am as an individual.
And I would probably say that it's helped to shape you, but you probably had that strength and resilience that was strengthened through that experience as well. You know, that little bit of, was it there before or did it happen from the event? You know, I think it's a bit of both, but it certainly sounds like there is a lot of strength there in you and your family, and a lot of that love. And I know your family's very, very tight. It's a really tight unit, and that probably, an experience where you have a child, a sibling who is faced with a life-threatening illness, that really, I could imagine, puts into perspective what's important in life.
Yeah, definitely. And I think really, I only feel like I've almost come back on track in terms of my life, I suppose.
Yeah.
Because naturally I grew up very quickly. When my sister relapsed, I was basically the primary carer for my brother, because my mum was in hospital all the time and my dad didn't cope as well. And so, by the time I came back to Canberra and my sister was recovering, I was, in year 12 by that point, and I didn't care about anyone my age. I didn't care about school. I didn't go to formal. I didn't go to the graduation. None of that stuff mattered to me. And though I don't regret the choices that I made, I know it very much separated me from my cohort, so to speak.
Yes.
But so I've always felt a little bit older
than
I am, I suppose.
Yeah.
But in a good way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can see that the experience has led to all of those things, that because it really is what's important, so the family and being there with your, as a support for your family and your sister, that all those things that, had that not happened, that might have been a different, importance for you. So it really puts things into perspective, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I remember, as you mentioned earlier, my family, we're very close. And I think we've always been close, but we've definitely kind of soldiered on through this kind of trauma as a unit. But it's been hard, I suppose. I had a few years where I didn't talk to my brother. We didn't get along. It was like we'd spent so much time together and then we went away from me. And so I've had to rebuild that relationship, But on the other hand, my mum was such a support network for me during that time that I want to do anything that I can to make sure I can repay her. Even though she says things like, I'm your mum, that's my job kind of thing. Or I think she doesn't see the impact it made. I remember there was one day where she broke me out of school just so we could go shopping at a Westfield.
Oh, how cool.
And, and I always bring that up to her because it was just like I was having a shocking day and it was something I didn't know I needed. And she's like, yeah, but I'm your mum kind of thing. And so she doesn't see the impact. So I think that's the other thing I've taken away from this is I want to be that for someone else, whether it's in my family or at work. I think I'm very grateful for the network that I had in those times.
Yeah.
So I always hope I'm someone that can pay that back as well.
Oh, Kaitlyn, I love that so much. That I hope my kids are listening to. And you know what? As mums, we do those things to. That is our job. But I think for your mum, that's beautiful. For her to know the impact that she's had, and how appreciative you are of her, which is beautiful. And I love, Kaitlyn, I love hearing, and it's almost like when you were talking about your first job and talking about the experience of your sister's illness, and it's just about wanting to give back. Like I can just see, and I know this because we hang out a lot, but just that real heart-centered person that you are, and that kindness and real being of service for others through your experience, knowing what it was like having somebody there or having a range of people there for you is just, do you know what I see? Because I do a lot of work in that leadership space, and some people just do it for a job because they get a paycheck at the end of the day, and they have what I call golden handcuffs that they're getting paid really good money, but they feel that they're handcuffed to a job that they don't love. And what I've heard is that you love your job. It's a real being of service to others, and I'm not sure if I'm correct in saying this, but there's that passion that you have there about,
definitely.
That is
definitely. And I think that's, perhaps it's something I've learned on the way. I don't want to waste my time, so to speak, being trapped in a situation like that.
Yeah.
And, the other thing that I think about my job is, it also enables me to do things with my family as well. So I know you mentioned in the intro, but my sister and I just bought a house.
Yes, that's very exciting.
It is. We're so happy, and I know that my job enables us to do that, but also my sister equally contributed as well. And so it was a cool moment for us to, we're two different people who have had, different, life experiences, even though we're in a unit, but we were able to, equally contribute to this huge goal, so to speak. And so that's been really good as well.
Because that, I could imagine, for some people, living with siblings it might not end very well, but it sounds like that's a good arrangement.
Yeah, I think, we're quite close. I think, my favourite story, and we laugh about it now, but I was mortified for years, but the week before my sister was diagnosed, we had this massive fight. I have no idea what it's about to this day, but I remember being like, I'm going to divorce you. And then the next weekend she went and got cancer. So I think she won that one. But, I think after that, we've just kind of realised that literally nothing can stop us.
Yes.
But equally, our schedules are, I think I only see her on the weekends because she's a chef. So she works till really late at night. So there's absolutely no time for us to bicker.
That's quite a good arrangement. Yeah, that's a good arrangement, isn't it? Does she cook for you or not? She's probably tired of doing that by the time she gets home.
She cooks for me on the weekend. So on the weekend she made me a slow cooked pork.
Nice.
And that was a good moment for me where I felt like I had made it.
Yes, so you take credit. That's my kind of cooking. My kind of cooking. Anything slow cooker that doesn't need very much preparation and it's got very clear instructions is my I missed out on that. I missed out on that domestic gene growing up. I did not get that at all.
Yeah, she got that. I feel like I got the I can say I got the drive. I like to say I got the beauty. For those listening, I'm rolling my eyes.
We'll just tell them that we've both got the beauty gene.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I couldn't have it all.
Tell me, what fills your cup? What makes you happy and light up?
People. I've got a very complicated answer actually, because I do say people. So my network, friends, family, work. But equally what I've learned in the last kind of 6 to 12 months is I fill my cup up. So like I
got goosebumps. Sorry, yes.
I just think as well, like, I don't get me wrong, sometimes all I need is to sit and have a wine with someone like you, Catherine, or with one of my other close friends. But I think I've learned that it's okay to recognize that sometimes you need to just step away and sit in bed or do an activity. I'm really into crochet at the moment, and by that I mean I'm trying to teach myself.
Yeah, same.
Or we should do a club. But I think as well, like I used to think that was a bad trait, I suppose, in terms of I used to see it as isolating myself from the world. But I think really sometimes you just need your own space to reset, and you're allowed to give yourself permission to do that.
Yes. Oh, Kaitlyn, I love hearing that, because so many people don't do that, and that they're not comfortable with themselves, and it's almost like they do whatever they can to not be with themselves. And I think for you to get that at a young age, like, I'm just so happy, because there's a lot of women, myself included, that it's taken a long time to feel comfortable with who I am. So that's lovely. I really love hearing that. I knew you were improved version of
I'm just reading the lines you sent through earlier.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, those notes I sent you. So what's next? What's next for you?
Well, I don't know. I got asked this the other day, actually. I was doing a university assignment, and then I just made up some line because I had no idea what to write. But I think for me, my position at the moment with work is I've just built a fairly new team.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to kind of settle in with them and see what makes them tick, and to challenge them and to support them and whatnot. I think for me personally, I just feel like I'm on a bit of a wave at the moment, and I'm just cruising, and I think I'll just continue that. My sister and I just moved out of home. I'm still learning that you have to do your own washing, and the fairies don't do it for you.
Learning to be a grown-up.
Yeah, exactly. But kind of going on to what I was saying before about what makes my cup full is I'm very much learning about who I am and what I want to do and who I want to be. And so I think that's my goal for this year, is to just unpack that a little bit more.
Yeah. Do you like who you are?
Yes. I think there's definitely aspects of me that I would roll my eyes out, but I've learned very recently that I'm not as bad as I make myself by.
Oh my gosh,
with my own internal thinking. And like I'll skim over it, but since my sister got sick, I've struggled with depression and anxiety and sleeping disorders and all of that. And I used to think it was something that I had those things because I wasn't coping well enough. And so really I've just I just feel like I've just had enough time with me that I've been able to recognize it and acknowledge it. I don't think some people say that they accept these things, but I think for me that just implies that one day you wake up and you're like, I'm just gonna be I'm gonna be fine. But I think for me, a long time I used to hide away from that kind of stuff, not because I was ashamed, but I just didn't want to deal with it. But now I see it as a very good part of me, and I'm trying to harness it in a way that's not so negatively impacting my life. So, like, for an example, I use, my anxiety is quite, relevant in my day-to-day, and I used to find that really debilitating in terms of worrying what people thought of me, what I looked like when I went out in public. And though that's still there, I try to think of it in a way in terms of being like, all right, well, if I'm anxious over a piece of work, I'm going to go through it again and then make it better. And then, the end product is something that I'm ultimately proud of, so to speak. Or sometimes when I'm at home and I find I get that anxious feeling, I'm like, I'm going to vacuum a room and try to get that nervous energy out. So I think really I've just figured out how to do these little small things. So it's hard because it's like I don't like that I'm anxious or that I get, depression or anything like that, but also it's kind of making up who I am. So I'm learning to love that part of her as well.
Oh gosh, Kaitlyn, there's so many bits that we can unpack, and I think what you've just said there about all the aspects of you and not wanting to deny them because they're part of who you are. And I think in my growing up, there was parts that I just denied, and I just thought that I didn't like, I was very critical about, just that whole hating on myself. And it's taken me a lot of years, and I think it's probably only in recent years that I can really say that I like who I am, and I really love who I am. But there's no way, I remember the 24-year-old me, that there was stuff going on for her that I wish I knew what I know now. And I love seeing and being around you, because you're getting to know you as well. And I think that's just a beautiful place to be. And regardless of, the age that we're at, that I think is just such a gift, to be who we are, to acknowledge who we are. And one of the things that I've really shifted in my life is changing the language. I used to even refer to, all the shit that went on in my life. And I don't now. There's stuff that happened in my life. And, I really honor that, because that's made me who I am. And just by even shifting the narrative around the stories I tell myself has really helped me to embody who I am. And you and I both know that we're great, but you know what? There's parts I don't get it right all the time. I don't get it a lot of times. That there's lots and lots of times, but I'm not as harsh on myself as I had been in the past. So
yeah, definitely. And I very much associate myself with that, in terms of moving that mindset to honoring your past kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm the same, I very much fluctuate in terms of how I look at myself, and I go through weeks where I can't stand how I'm dressing or the way my hair is, and and I do pick on these things, so to speak, but I'm trying to almost retrain that part of my brain. But also acknowledge that I'm at a point in my life where I can do it, but others aren't. And so how do you still, don't halt yourself on your progression, but still stay there with someone to support them as well, is something I'm very passionate about as well.
Yeah. That just sounds lovely. I think we might need to revisit this at some stage. Kaitlyn, any last little pearls of wisdom for people who are, especially young women who are on their kind of journey of life? Any parting bits of?
I think, only you know where you're at. Only you know who you are not. Don't, you're on your journey, so to speak. You're on a train heading in a direction. Don't let others who are sitting on the sideline stop that progression. And whether that's them, telling you can't do it, or telling you to do something else that you don't want to, don't let other people who are, a side character in your movie stop you from getting towards your goals.
Oh, love it, Kaitlyn. That's one of my mottos in life is, excuse me, is just to be comfortable and confident to be who you want to be and live life the way that you want to live life. So thank you so much for our time together.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I've just really enjoyed that, and I think we could probably fill up at least another 100 episodes together. So love to you. That's a wrap. And so many beautiful, lovely things there. So hugs and happiness, gorgeous.
See ya.